Mission start!
That was a lot to take in, and I was already in a weird mood. You ever get that, like, where you hear news in a weird space, and it causes you to react irrationally?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a real human thing to experience.
Because as soon as it happened, like, we got done that night, and I was like, why'd you get so angry? It's not like he's like, you're an idiot. It's not like he, like, yelled at me for, like, 30 minutes. You were very calm and just delivered information that you had found out and were trying to share.
Well, the thing is, and I've noticed this more and more, and this is why I had to learn, because, like, if we had that same conversation 10 years ago, if somehow I had all that knowledge 10 years ago, I probably would have been much more excitable. I probably would have been a lot more emphatic. I probably would have been a lot more like offensive, more forceful, more like, no, this is the truth and you have to believe it and just fucking deal with it. And it's like, that's not
the best way to deliver.
Really like a super effective way to present information to people. I'm sure that, if I went into it with a combative attitude, especially when it's something like that, that's like, it's super sensitive because it challenges one of your fundamental assumptions about yourself. And it's something that everyone experiences. Despite being completely, like, pretty, not to say to the exclusion of any, like, future research, but, like, I'm convinced that those findings are correct.
Yeah.
I'm not a neuroscientist, so I have, like, no grounds on which to dispute it. I still feel like I have free will.
Yeah.
I still live as if I do.
And what made me feel like the biggest hypocrite in the world is I'm over here trying to convince you both that I see God as a physical being. And I don't see you jumping up in arms and getting angry at me saying that, even though neither one of you physically believe it. Yet you tell me something that you believe to be a fundamental truth. And I'm over here like, oh!
There's science behind it.
Oh my God. Like, calm down, killer. It's all right. My God. So, yeah, that's why I was like, I want to say it was silly, because I understand my emotional response. I get it. Because when you have that thing kind of called into question, it makes you question everything else, too, and sometimes you're just not prepared for that kind of news.
Yeah.
But it was silly in the regards that coming from you, I should take that as more you and I having a great conversation and you opening my eyes to something I never thought of before, opposed to me being upset about it.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that, like, if that is your initial response, it's completely okay to have that response. What makes that an okay thing in the first place is that it was followed by self-reflection. Whereas a person who was, like, fully reactionary would then take that experience and turn it into a reason to think that I am just a giant piece of shit. Even though, again, these aren't even my conclusions.
Yeah, I'm delivering information. Like, I didn't do the research, guys. I read the information, and it's there. It's out there. Which, by the way, it made me read a whole bunch of different works from people who believe the same thing, and it's absolutely fascinating. I do find it to be intriguing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a very scientific way to view decision making. I still want to dig into it more, because then there's so many different variables that opens up about how. So if that's the case, then how, if you can shape it, because technically anything your brain can do, you can shape that behavior.
Yes.
So
yes, that is.
So at that point, if that's the truth, then how do we begin then to shape people's brains to make that behavior change in certain instances?
Every single answer I can give you to that question from my perspective is going to be, I mean, it's 100% we do anarchism. Basically. This is why I was saying before, if you don't have any conscious control over the way your decisions are made, but your environment does,
change the environment completely.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
To make, like, the simplest possible summation, that. Yeah.
You know what? And
this is why I want to change society, because I think it will not inherently, I think it will necessarily make the people in it better. Just it'll be what happens. Not saying that's like a, solution that could just be implemented overnight or anything, but I think the ultimate result would be more pro-social behavior in humans.
It makes all the sense in the world. Because no, that now thinking about that being the truth, that makes all the sense in the world. Because you would need a dramatic stimulus to be able to change a lot of that fundamental thinking, and that would be the only way really to do that.
That's exactly my thinking.
Yeah.
That's what got me around to all the conclusions I've got and why I, very much, I fundamentally disagree with all of your worst fears about what human nature is. Is because we currently live under a system that encourages antagonistic competition, and which doesn't really. We still have a concept of cooperative competition, but we don't apply it practically. We do it with team sports and shit. We let that be the realm of entertainment. But I was thinking about this just earlier today. I was thinking about you and your competitive tendencies, and I was thinking about is it the gratitude you receive from having won that gets you, or is it that someone else lost, right? Because I was thinking what if, because I will agree completely that we do naturally, and that doesn't really apply to the same level to all people, because I'm a bit competitive, but not in the way that most people think of the word competitive as being competitive, because my drive is to be the best me I can be. It's not for anybody else to lose. The way we think of competition now only allows for there to be a winner by way of someone else losing. Which economically means that it has to be a zero-sum game at all times. For you to benefit, someone else has to actually lose something.
Yeah.
Whereas if we had work drives, as a social event, where let's say we were in, a less industrial society, wood chopping competitions, there's still a winner, but that benefits literally everyone in the entire community.
Right.
So there's not a loser. There's just somebody who wasn't in first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand. I get what you mean.
It kind of recontextualizes the idea of competition, and it's something that the society we have now isn't really prepared to do, because this, what we have now depends on somebody losing something for anyone to gain anything. So
and no, it's funny, and when you tell me about my I need to calm down being competitive, it's always hard, especially in the environment that we're in, because there's so much of it around me.
You mean the retail space, or life in general?
Just in life in general.
Sure.
Not just from where I work, but what I do, who I talk to, my friends. It's all my brothers. My brothers and I drive on competition. Now I'm sure that's where I grew up and who we are, but me and my youngest brother will text each other about our football team sucking, and and it happens every Sunday, and it's our way of kind of staying close. But at the same time, it's if the Cowboys and Cardinals ever play, it's back and forth about how he's not a good football fan, and he really should have thought about his life choices. You didn't even grow up in Phoenix. You have no excuse to be a Cardinals fan other than the fact that you like the color red. That's about it. They haven't won anything in years, but that's hey, that's fine. But that kind of, to me, that competition brings people closer in a way.
Yeah.
Because it all gives us a centralized goal. The ones who are competing with you.
Right. Well, see, and that's
the cooperative competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want to be part of a team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no.
You know what I mean? It's...
Yeah, the question that you asked me the other day that you heard on Phil, what was it?
Oh, okay. If you had the choice to either work in a company where you make $90,000 a year and everyone else makes $80,000 a year, or a company where you make $100,000 a year but everyone else makes $110,000, which would you choose?
Knowing your answer, I would imagine you would be the second one, where you would make a little bit less and allow everybody to make more, right?
I guess I don't really understand the point of the question.
There's a follow-up,
because they're so close. That's such a minuscule difference that what's it matter?
That's the point. Well, that's the point. Most people would choose the $90,000 for the status of saying you make more than everyone else you work with.
I don't want that at all.
Right.
And
I
why I brought that up.
don't have any problem with being the lowest paid person in an organization if I fucking bring home $100,000 a year. Like what?
Right.
Because money has nothing to do with status to me. Money is a means to an end. I don't.
Exactly. I heard the follow-up question to that too, because most people would choose that 90,000 over everyone else's 80 for the status. But if they're asked, would you prefer to work in a company where you get 3 weeks of vacation a year and everyone else gets 1, or work in a company where you get 6 weeks and everyone else gets 9? Which would you prefer? Everybody always takes the 6 weeks.
Yeah, because
the lesser amount compared to everyone else, because there's no status in vacation.
Yeah.
But there is status in money.
That's a really, really good. That's a clever distinction to make. I gotta say it's very, very insightful.
And what I found most interesting about that question is I myself chose the 100 over the 110. And then that made me question. I didn't tell you about this part because I was kind of holding on until we talked about it more.
Nice.
That made me question my want for being a capitalist, because you're right. I should want to have that as a status, but I've also always wanted everybody around me to eat too.
Yeah. Well, see, that I actually started thinking about that too after you answered that, because the entire reason that you have for being a capitalist basically is because you already work hard, and you want to believe that the harder you work, the more money you can get, the more comfortable we can be.
Yeah.
But if we move to like an anarchist society, you could still work hard because it makes you feel good, but you wouldn't have to worry about how well your family is doing.
And not just because it makes you feel good. I mean, I imagine everybody would be a lot more amenable to the working conditions under a system like the one I would propose, because it would mean we'd all be doing a hell of a lot less, like just hours wise, of necessary work. All the rest of your time could be devoted to whatever kind of work you wanted to do. But so it wouldn't just be that it made you feel good, but you'd be making a real contribution to not just yourself or your family, but the entire society. You'd no longer have any concern of where tomorrow's dinner comes from, right?
Yeah.
Which I'll let Amanda continue to say, because I don't want to just hijack your fucking thing.
No, you're good.
I actually did have a second point to make, but
sure. When you do, just jump in.
I probably won't. Let's be real. But
no, you have to worry about where money was going to come from for healthcare or food or anything like that, because you wouldn't need money, because you would be able to get whatever we needed.
I think thinking about this as much as we've had to over the last couple of weeks, what drives you then to work harder? What pushes you to be better?
Because if we don't work hard at the necessities, none of us get anything.
Do you mean under the hypothetical system or
yes,
okay.
Under the hypothetical system?
I don't know if you mean like currently,
Oh yeah, no. I because you're right. Those are my drives to push harder and be better now. Like in the system that we're currently in, it's always a constant grind to want to have my family in a better place, no matter what our current situation is. And we're very blessed and fortunate now because we work hard. Like I see it. So in that scenario, systems were to change. What pushes me to not be good at where we are?
Yeah, it's really, really cool that you're asking that question, because literally everything you just said is a question that I was hoping to ask you in the follow-up conversations to everything else we've done, because I wondered how you might feel about that if you weren't grinding your ass every day to just to, I mean, obviously to hopefully improve things, but to make ends meet. If the making ends meet wasn't a problem, and the future was secure, and that was a pretty sure thing, do you just assume that you would then stop having any drive, or might you find a new way to invest your effort? That's
where I kind of have to do a personal deep dive, because then if all I'm doing is pushing to make us better as a family, am I really doing this for the right reasons?
Right.
Like, what motivates me? What drives me what pushes me to be better. Even like if you guys were gone, Lord forbid, what would make me get up in the morning and want to keep doing this? I really don't have an answer for that question.
Now, see, that's where I find myself currently, because I don't have anyone to do this for other than me. What keeps me going, I have been close enough to being homeless enough times to know that I never ever want to be that close to being homeless again. You know, things are pretty damn good. So I still never ever ever want to go to work. I hate it. I'm not working any harder to improve things any further because I am as comfortable as I'm likely to become. Now I'm in a state of needing to like kind of rally my personal like mental and emotional resources as much as possible, because like now I am finally for the first time ever in the kind of position where I can now go join up with groups and work to build a better world. And that's what keeps me going, really, is knowing that now I have the potential to make that change. Like I feel less exhausted than I used to when I was just trying to keep my head above water. Like I'm not even treading water anymore. I'm sitting in like I'm in a lawn chair on the side of the pool.
Chill.
You know,
I got a floaty, guys. We're good.
I'm not really, yeah, right. I'm not needing to expend as much energy just getting by as I did for years and years. And I mean, it's been a long fucking recovery process from that. And I'm still not over it. I'm not done with that, but I'm better every day than I was. And that is going to be what enables me to go do what I actually want to do, as evidenced by the fact that we started this.
Yeah.
You know, any time prior to this, I don't think I would have been capable of it, because this has been a lot of extra work. Like this has turned out to be quite a lot of effort spent, and I would not have it any other way. I'm loving it.
So since we're on this topic, what would you do if systems started and everything, you didn't have to grind anymore? Because you've been grinding 17, 18?
Dude, I don't know what I do. I would want to take a little bit of time just off.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, outside of doing the stuff that we have to do, you know.
Yeah,
like,
obviously.
Like taking care of, if there's a commune, like doing whatever our skills were that were necessary in order to keep that going. Because that's been the question I've had a lot. Like, what would I bring to a society like that?
Yeah, same.
You know, like physically, I can't do much because, you know, I have bad hips. You know, I'm not going to be out there plowing a field. I
No, but there are other things that would need done.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and keep in mind too that that the actual working of fields, like, I mean, every time we talk about this kind of stuff, we do talk about it as if it's kind of like back to a more primitive,
like dystopian, like the world. Yeah, like the world goes dark. I know. I've thought about that too.
Yeah, and that like there's no reason to think. Well, I think I brought that up when I was originally talking about all this. Is like we have all this infrastructure. It's already there. We have all this technology. It's already there. Like there's, as I said before, but really, all in all, there's no reason to believe that any of the technology we currently have would just cease to exist. It just would operate under different conditions, right?
Right.
So, like, I don't think that there would be a single instance out of somebody who was like, if people wanted to like maintain small community gardens, which I think they absolutely should. Like, there's no reason not to do that. Anybody who wants to should participate in that, and I would love to. But as far as like mass scale farming to feed literally everyone, like we already have gigantic, complicated machines that do that. We'd still use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody needs to actually go, oh.
You know, the only thing I can think of, though, and other than praying that the good of mankind would be at this person's forefront, can you imagine flying an airplane with a pilot who didn't have to be there?
That would be the best experience.
You think so? I don't know why,
it,
but that kind of scares me a little bit.
Well, no, if they continue to be a pilot, knowing that they could choose to do anything else they wanted.
Yeah.
They're doing it because they love it.
Yeah, I'm looking at it the wrong way. You're right. You're right.
See, this is what the system we have now does, and this is why it's so hard for people to come around to literally anything else, even if it's not as extreme as what I'd propose, is that people have this notion that they have to be led. I was watching a video shortly before we jumped on here of Noam Chomsky explaining like what basically just what anarchism is. And one of the counterpoints that one of the guys on the panel he was taking kind of questions from mentioned was it just seems like it's just easier to follow a leader than it is to have full on like individual agency, right? Mm-hmm. And he kind of went on with that for a minute, and Noam Chomsky looks at the guy. He's like, "Yeah, that's a pretty good argument for slavery."
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, kind of take a step back and think about it and realize that like everything that you're advocating is, I'm not literally like chattel slavery, but it's not that far removed from it really. If the tendency is basically any form of authoritarianism, you're saying A, people are incompetent to run their own lives, and B, it's just easier to
have somebody tell you what to do,
to be dominated than it is to be an agent. And and it's like, it's a pretty uncomfortable thing to realize you've believed your whole life. And that's probably one of the things that got me off of that, was realizing, I mean, I've always had a problem with people who would impose their own authority over me without my consent, you know. That's always, since I can remember, since I was a little kid, I couldn't stand that. And I didn't realize that wasn't just me being like stubborn asshole. Like that's like, if you gave anybody a chance not to have that, they would take it. People prefer freedom, and whenever they have the opportunity to obtain more of it, they do. And the current system makes that almost impossible. But you take every last little bit of it you can. This is why people, you know, cheat on their work hours when they know they can get away with it, and why people take more smoke breaks than they are technically allowed if they know they can get away with it. And all these little tiny liberties we take are about asserting our own personal liberty in a system that desperately wants us not to have any. And the thing is, most people have bought it. It's the only reason why a system like this could continue to exist, is most people believe it's the only possibility. But if you could get people to be able to actually experience real personal liberty, or at least as much as that's possible, in the current society, you always find that they want more of it. Nobody wants to be ruled, but they are convinced they have to be. And that's fucked. Like, that's really sad. If you think about, you know, plenty of alternatives that aren't so iron-fisted, but we think we need it.
Yeah, because you've been told your whole life that it's just something that you have to do. You have to listen to this. You have to do it this way. There are certain ways to be able to accomplish it, but you have to do it within the confines of this. So to even think that something else is out there is a pretty tough pill to swallow, because one, you think it's unreachable. Two, if you do go after it and you fail, where does it leave you?
Well, if you go after it and you fail, then where it leaves you is probably exactly where you currently are.
Yeah.
It's not going to end the fucking world. It's just going to return to an authoritarian system, as it always has. Like, that's the thing.
This isn't new.
Yeah. That question comes up all the time. It's like, well, if it failed, what would happen? Like, what do you assume would happen? Because everybody talks about it like it would be a world-ending scenario. It's like, don't you understand that capitalism currently is a world-ending scenario? And every time, you know, something's tried to break from capitalism and do something else, where it's failed, it's been usually because of capitalist/imperialist influences, and usually then that's the system that's reimposed. But, you know, again, a system to which you are so wholeheartedly devoted is like doing its damnedest to fucking kill us all, and it's going to succeed.
Which drives me.
It is going to happen.
I wish you could get the community spirit that communism brings with the competitive spirit that capitalism brings.
I think that's the point of differentiation I was making earlier is that, well, okay. So what exactly is it you think that competition brings to the table? Like, why is that why is that something, a value to strive for?
In my own personal life, it's always made me better. It's always pushed me to do things that I didn't think I could do before.
Excuse me, but is it the competition or the team?
It's the competition. The team is what.
Right.
The team to me is what helps me get there, and what helps me achieve a goal. The competition is what individually fuels me to be better.
okay, so here's the thing, right? Underlying that is a desire to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Do you assume that would go away if you didn't have losers to your winner?
No, because I'd always want to be better. Like my whole okay.
See what I'm getting at?
Yep, there it goes. Because regardless of if that competition wasn't there, I would still always want to be better. There was nothing that would ever stop me from wanting to be better. I just would have to find a different way of being able to inspire that.
And the thing is that could still come about by by competition. It just does not need to be antagonistic competition.
Mm.
I mean, I don't assume, because this is, man, again, this is something that just not every time, but very, very commonly when I've had conversations about this stuff with strangers, that kind of thing, that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot. And I don't know it. Well, I do. I mean, like I said about basically all of this, is it comes down to like the particular indoctrination we've all had from birth, just living in the system we live in. Because capitalism loves to tell the story about how competition makes the world. Mm-hmm. That's not true. Competition makes capitalism. But all of the first, let's just start from like agriculture forward. So let's say roughly about 11,700 years worth of human history without capitalism and all the technological achievement that we made by the 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that happened because people wanted to be better than other people, or that happened because people wanted to be able to like move more easily from point A to point B?
Make things better.
Nobody like invented the wheel because it was going to give them a one-up on somebody. They invented the wheel because like the practical reasons anything's ever been made. If we had never had capitalism, there is a possibility, I don't think it's a high probability, but there's a possibility that we wouldn't have reached the level of technological achievement that we have now. Mm-hmm. Then again, if we didn't have any notion of private property rights and intellectual property rights, etc., how much more technological progress could we maybe have made if all of that was completely unfettered?
If we all just kind of pulled our resources, shared brains, and went after it together.
Think about the progression of Microsoft Windows from 1985 to current versus all of the open source software that has existed in that same time. I mean, the software that's had the most ridiculous resources poured into it, I mean monetary resources, certainly advances quickly, no question about that. But the free and open source software has kept up with it 100%. That there are, Linux distributions that were made 100% anarchically, which is basically all of them, the non-commercial ones anyway. Even the commercial ones depended on the work that non-commercial actors did, that their operating systems are just as in line with what we might expect out of a modern commercial product. And that was all done by people who just wanted to do it with no incentive whatsoever.
Yeah, because they weren't going to pay for it.
Maybe they could like use that as resume padding to say, hey, I made this major contribution to this, this operating system distribution that is in use worldwide. I'm sure that can make you look real good to a company who might want to hire you for your coding skills. But largely that work wasn't contributed by people who were paid to do it. They were just people who had an interest in doing it and decided to get involved in the community and make it happen because they just wanted to, because they thought it was cool.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, you can take it in either direction. You're not wrong to say, I'm not saying you are asserting, but anybody isn't necessarily wrong to say that there has been a level of progress that probably has been enabled by the existence of a capitalist economy. But to say that it couldn't have got there without it is nonsense.
Yeah, because you don't know. And that's the toughest thing.
Not just that you don't know, but we have plenty of examples of the exact
opposite. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't, anybody, so common for anybody who sees the end of capitalism as some doom and gloom scenario. Like, the only thing that can have happened to end a system like that is, like, fucking worldwide disaster where everything's horrible. Come on. You really believe that that's the only condition under which we could prevail is this horrible oppression and wage slavery that we've lived with for hundreds of years? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, we did fine without it before.
The crazy thing about that is that the way you're describing that, even though I haven't really seen it until this point, is the same way that people look at fossil fuels now in relation to clean energy.
Uh-huh.
How do you mean?
Whereas you have big fossil companies saying, "Oh, without this, it's all going to go dark. What happens if the wind stops blowing?"
Oh, yeah. Right. It's a system that currently exists, making excuses for itself to continue to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need this in order for it to work.
We're
Otherwise,
him
if you
over
go,
yet.
Hmm?
He's gonna dye half his hair red.
I'm not going to dye half my head. It would be a completely different thing if I dyed my hair half red. That wouldn't work.
I'm just saying.
It's not going to work.
We're winning you over with words.
I see.
We'll dye your heart half black.
How impressed are you by the 16-year-old Greta and what she's doing?
I like her very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a stone cold badass, and I absolutely love
she is.
Taking
Sorry.
people to fucking task.
I saw something on Twitter today where somebody put her speech to death metal, and she's like, "Okay, I give up on this whole climate crisis thing. I'm going into death metal full time now." It's adorable.
I can imagine having that much courage that young,
Mm-hmm.
because you knew it was coming. You knew what I was waiting for, because that train's never late. The making fun of her and the comments and the side quips, I knew they were coming. Like, it's just you could only be a darling like that for so long.
I gotta be honest, like her whole thing like has lasted a lot longer without it than I was expecting. Like it took them for her appearing before the UN in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Up until this, the reactionaries were not. They were pretty quiet about Greta Thunberg. I have no idea why. They should have been way earlier than that. But awesome that she made it as far as she did before that set in. One of the really, really cool things about her, given that she has Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to find a whole lot of room to give a shit about what the worst people have to say about
it.
Yeah.
I mean, she won't be unaffected by it, but I think she's probably going to have a much more like, just shut the fuck up attitude about it. There's not going to be a lot of sensitivity there to it.
That's why we were watching probably Phil, and he showed a clip of one of the right-wing guys, like, basically trying to say that her parents are exploiting her because of her quote-unquote mental illness.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And it's like, dude,
like that's where you're reaching.
Her what you call her mental illness is it's her superpower, as I've seen people put it on Twitter, because she can say
it's a bit of an aid, because it's the kind of focus that brings is not to be underestimated.
And she's only going to speak what she knows as the truth.
Yes.
She's not going to put out any bullshit.
Yeah, she doesn't have to sugarcoat it because she doesn't have that built in.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing there that makes her be like, okay, I have to say this PC. Nah, y'all about to hear all this.
Well, and the thing is that, that she's approaching this situation in such a very impassioned way is the only appropriate way to do it, because this is as dire a situation as humanity has ever faced. I mean, we are going to wipe ourselves the fuck out.
As Bill Nye said, the world's on fucking fire.
Yes.
I like George Carlin had a bit on it way the fuck earlier than any of the conversations we're having now, because obviously he's dead, but that he was saying, like, the world is not going to end. The world is going to be fine. We're fucked. The planet is going to go on without us just fine, like it always does.
Yeah. Oh, Carlin.
Yeah, that's the thing, is maybe if every last bit of this has been shown to the public through an environmentalist lens, and it should be, because that's actually like literally correct and true, but like I don't think that the message has been sold just how totally boned we are. If we allow this to continue, like, we're going to die.
Well, they're still holding on to the idea that Elon Musk is going to say, we're going to move to Mars. It'll be fine. There's no big deal. We're gonna get.
And then we're going to destroy Mars.
I barely think there's anybody that truly believes that's even a viable alternative.
I don't see
I don't think that's. Because the thing is, we would have to put more work into making Mars habitable than we would have to make this planet continue to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have the technology yet to terraform an entire planet. I mean, well, not favorably anyway. We don't know how to make something that's completely uninhabitable into something habitable.
Mhm.
We've shown we're pretty goddamn good at making the reverse of that happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can destroy something really easy. We got that part down.
We're like we're real solid at that.
Yeah, we can destroy stuff.
That's right. This is deja vu.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Do I then begin to grow into a giant green rage monster?
No.
Oh, okay. What's the hope?
I was just saying, I feel like you guys have had a similar conversation before about us being great at destroying things, but
We probably have.
Yeah.
We talk about people being able to break things rather easily quite often. So
yeah.
reason why I asked the Greta question to both of you: do you think, let's say, time travel existed? Do you think you could convince 16-year-old yourselves to take up more of an aggressive stance?
No.
No.
No, not even with all the information and the power that you have at your hands now.
If I could transport my current consciousness and entire knowledge set into my 16-year-old body,
Mm-hmm.
my life would be very different right now. But 16-year-old me, as he actually was, no, I don't think that I could do what Greta's doing. I don't know about you guys. Have you noticed that people of that age are like a hell of a lot more politically clued in?
Mm-hmm.
Because I sure as shit was not when I was 16.
No.
Mm-mm.
Like, not in the least bit. Only I knew that I was supposed to hate George W. Bush. Like, that's about the extent of my knowledge at the time. I really knew jack shit
most
about
I
anything
knew- 15, 16 years old, all I really knew about politics was I knew I had to hate George Bush, and I knew that at least part of that we should never have been in.
Oh yeah, the Iraq War
Like,
should never-
even then,
basically.
hearing
Yeah.
the little bit that I did, I was like, yeah, no, we shouldn't be in Iraq, guys. Why the fuck are we in Iraq, guys?
I wonder if our generation was the one to start all this, not to start all this, like we were the first to be subject to it since like this 60s maybe. Because like of young people being politically active seems to like go on cycles of just how horrible things are, and like we were the first to be subject to this era of horrible.
Yeah.
We were the first to. No, that's not true. We were the first to start seeing the repercussions of it, because like the me that I am now, had I been of this age back in the 80s, I would have been pissed off about exactly all the same shit, only I'd be seeing it happen in real time rather than seeing the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
Reaganomics, etc. The rise of neoliberalism, the payoffs came 20, 30 years later, and that's where we are now. Like the economic deregulation of certain pretty goddamn key industries and the kind of things that lead to, well, the emergence of Fox News didn't help anything good. I mean, it didn't help anything good. It helped a lot of things. That was the point of it. It was entirely intended to be propaganda from the very begining, and it was very, very, very effective.
That is what I find most interesting about Fox News now. They're imploding.
Mm-hmm.
You see bits and pieces of anchors actually going at it with each other, like in between like hours, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Whoa!" Can you like? That's how you can tell that Roger Ailes is no longer in control, because there's no way he would have been okay with that happening.
Yeah.
Like it would either have been one company line across the board, and if you're not with it, then you're just not there.
Started making these awesome. There's this place in Morgantown that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Called the Rusted Musket. I mean, these fucking amazing double-decker sandwiches where it was like three breads of Texas toast. And the bottom layer was always like the meat and sauce and cheese, and then bread, and then French fries and coleslaw and more bread.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. The best drunk food in the entire world. No, you need the coleslaw. Trust me, it makes the whole thing. I know. It's not coleslaw in this application. It's something entirely else.
Okay.
Because there's a crunch that is needed that the sandwich like can't live without. You have to have the coleslaw. And so that went out of business a couple of years ago. And I mean, obviously, I wasn't there for that. I've been out of Morgantown for years, but when I found out it went out of business, like I had to make a sandwich. Like I needed to make I needed to do that. So I drew up this recipe for, they had a sandwich called the Santa Fe, which was like shredded chicken and like this sort of like creamy hot sauce. Mm-hmm. And then all the rest of the stuff I just said. So I'm making that. I made the sauce. It's so fucking good. Chipotle peppers and adobo with like sauteed onions and garlic and some cumin and shit. So good. That's how I'll make the rest of it tomorrow, but I got a poached chicken to shred it and get that all mixed up with some like sauteed peppers and onions. And it's the best fucking sandwich. It's the trashiest thing in the world, and I love it to death.
We were just talking about sandwiches.
All right.
Yeah.
Sandwiches are my favorite food outside of tacos.
Hot take. Taco
Hot
is a
take.
sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fight. That's a fight.
Why?
Because a taco is so much more than a sandwich.
I would
Especially
say
when-
that there's no such thing as a sandwich that is any less than greater than the sum of its parts.
I don't like you right now. I need time to think about that. I'll come back to that. Because now I'm going to be thinking about that this whole time.
Just think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're gonna,
It's a form of bread.
A lot of people do the technical thing of saying like it's not a sandwich unless it's literally sandwiched,
Mm-hmm.
which means it requires 2 slices of bread or whatever bread like thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
But I make
if
half
that's where you're
sandwiches.
going, well, see, that's a half sandwich though. It's not a sandwich.
It's still a sandwich.
No.
Because you're still sandwiching it between the two halves.
Okay, fair enough. I dig that. That actually that makes my tacos are sandwiches argument stronger.
I will say, yeah, that actually does make the tacos and sandwiches harder.
So there.
Well, I wasn't saying that was my stance though. That was saying
Yeah.
that, like
Oh.
sandwich uber purists might say that something that doesn't have 2 slices of bread or bread equivalent is not a sandwich. To which I say no, nuh-uh.
Nah, that's a lie. It's fake news.
By these same criteria, taco is a sandwich.
What did you do? Somehow
Hot
you're-
dog is a sandwich.
Hot dog is a sandwich.
I would say, yeah, because at that point, everything's a sandwich.
Not everything.
No, anything that's a sandwich is a sandwich.
Oh,
Anyway,
I love you.
lies. That was me being
This
stubborn.
is one of my favorite arguments to have because it's fucking nonsense. Like, who cares what a sandwich is?
Right.
Tacos are independently awesome regardless of how else they're classified.
Exactly.
Same with hot dogs.
Yes. Yeah.
So the sandwich I was describing is, imagine this: 3 pieces of
Okay.
butter grilled Texas toast,
Okay.
1 Texas toast, shredded chicken in a creamy chipotle hot sauce.
Okay. You got me at hello.
I know. Some shredded Colby Jack cheese on top,
Okay.
melty. Another
Yep.
sliced grilled bread,
Right.
slightly crispy French fries,
Ooh.
bit of coleslaw,
Okay.
another grilled bread,
Shoestring or crinkle cut?
steak cut.
Oh, so it's oh, okay.
What was on top of the coleslaw? I didn't hear that.
More bread.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. You have everything in that sandwich
I know, right?
because the coleslaw will give you some of that sweet
And crunchy,
and that crunchy, and then you would have those. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what I'm having for lunch tomorrow.
I would say, yeah, yeah. That needs to. Oh, yeah, because I want that as shredded chicken now.
Mhm.
I want shredded chicken and chipotle sauce.
I'll send you
We're
the
having that
recipe
next
for
week.
the Southwest sauce. It's really, really
Yep.
goddamn good. And the
Yep.
thing is, you have to go like the sauce itself is the touch. Like that's the homemade, the gourmet. That's the good shit. The rest of the sandwich is as trashy as it can possibly be.
But that's all right.
It has to be like frozen fucking steak cut fries. It has to be store bought coleslaw.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make this thing good. You can't make it like all the way good because then you're fucking destroying what's awesome about it.
Yeah, exactly. That sandwich is supposed to make you feel gutter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
But you know what is not even that elaborate that I've been craving lately?
No,
Fries and gravy.
with cheese curd, so it's poutine.
No.
But
That's why I told her. I was like, "Isn't that poutine?"
no, but you have to. No, once you've gone that far, you have to make it poutine.
But I've just been missing the fries and gravy from Hoagie King.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's real life.
See?
Hoagie King was some good shit, man.
Wasn't it? I'm so upset. I miss that place.
I don't know what it is about places from your childhood that does that to you.
I know, right?
Every time we go home, I want In-N-Out.
Mm-hmm.
Without fail. It has to be one of my stops because it reminds me of my childhood.
Well, I mean,
And that and the
I've
food's
never
really good.
I've never had In-N-Out, but I know the way they make things, and the way they make things is fucking right.
Yeah, buddy.
I've never had
is
In-N-Out
really
from
good.
an In-N-Out, but I've made myself some fucking In-N-Out, and I'm telling you what, animal style all the goddamn way.
Good stuff. Solid. On what we were talking about before, I think that's one of the toughest things that I run into. Like, could I be a 16-year-old at any other point in our history? Because you guys were talking about, like, remember Iraq and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could I be a 16-year-old during the Civil Rights Movement? And if I was a 16-year-old in the Civil Rights Movement...
That's another question I wanted to ask you. I completely forgot it. That just occurred to me the other day, and I meant to write it down, and I forgot. Was basically like everything that we've been talking about was like everything we've been talking about. And I was like, I don't know why it took me so long, because it's such a fucking amazing parallel. Was like, does that mean that you at any point in the past would have not fought for instance, civil rights? Would you have like refused to get involved in the movement for fear of the kind of shit that everyone in Alabama was going through when everybody was going through shit in Alabama?
And you know what the crazy thing?
The rights won.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I can't say that I wouldn't have. I can't say that I wouldn't have stepped out there and did what I needed to do. Because looking at even, I don't want to say whose side, but who would I have leaned towards more, I couldn't tell you that.
Would you have been Malcolm or Martin?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you which side I would have leaned more towards.
If I know you probably would have gone more King.
Martin. Yeah, I think so too. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I think Dr. King spoke more to who I was as a person and who I eventually wanted to be as a person.
I totally get that. I think that had I been in that situation myself, I mean, born 30 years earlier and also black, had it
well,
been
that's not true. You know, they had a lot of...
Oh, no, but I mean, like...
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Like, because no, I mean, had I been in that scene in the 60s, if I was, for some reason, exactly the person I am now, only it was back then instead of now, yeah, I would have marched.
Yeah.
As a white dude, I totally would be right there. I'd have fucking marched. Yeah. But, you know, had I been one of them, the people who are fighting for their own rights, I don't know. I think I'd have a bit of a toss-up there because, like, well, we talked about this a little bit a couple episodes ago, me and you, when Amanda was doing shit, was Malcolm was more radical for sure.
Absolutely.
Was more about direct action. And I like both of those things. But then again, I also think of things in terms of, I strive for equality. And Malcolm, he straight up preached black supremacy.
Yeah, he was a separationist.
And I'm not like into that.
Yeah, and that's where I would have had the biggest divide.
Had I grown up black in the South in the 40s and 50s, I might feel differently about that.
Yeah, and maybe that's me being California. Maybe that's me being around, so much diversity and influencing not only who I am as a person, but also my parenting skills and me in a relationship. It influenced all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, what was it? It was 3 days ago. I just randomly just started watching different clips from the movie Malcolm X because Denzel Washington got robbed, and I was watching somebody make the debate how he got robbed for that Oscar, and I was like, let me go back and watch this because I know I had seen the movie countless times, but it had been a really long time since I've actually sat and watched the movie, so I wanted to see some of the best clips from it. And one of the speeches that he gave was Malcolm in the middle, like before he had the fight with. Yes. He literally was talking about the idea of giving the black man his own land completely away from everything.
So he was talking similar to what was debated upon in the 1800s.
Yeah, which to me is crazy because now, and this may have been at the time, just short-sightedness. I don't know why the white man at the time didn't ride with Malcolm. Like, if it was going to be that big of a problem,
it would have meant empowering them at all.
Yeah, it would have meant giving them a little bit of rope. Yeah, that's true.
Why, because they'd have the power to run their own lives, and they couldn't keep being used as tools by the state.
That's true, and that would have been the problem. But no, that part was hard for me because I was watching that, and the eloquence in the speech. That's the one thing that scares me the most about figures in history. The ones who are really, really good at speech, you can see the effect that they have on people, the power to move a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And to watch Denzel, and even watching black and white clips of Malcolm, there's so much eloquence. To me, Malcolm was more eloquent.
He was an amazing speaker.
Oh my God.
I think he was a little bit more dynamic. Like,
Yeah.
he really had real passion behind his speaking style. Whereas King was, well, I mean, you know, he had years of experience as a pastor first.
Mm-hmm.
And pastors tend to have a particularly measured way of delivering things.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that, I mean, there was plenty of passion in what he did too, but it wasn't unbridled, you know, it was practiced.
Yeah. Malcolm's was almost fury.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, very much.
Yeah,
well, I guess that's the thing, is like where Dr. King let his speech writing ability shine, and but he was always, even when he was passionate, he was like measured.
Yep.
I'm sure that he was extremely pissed off, but he didn't let that show, because that's just not what you do from the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you do from the lectern either. Whereas Malcolm was extremely pissed and very okay with making that be part of his persona, because like that was part of the message. Rightly so. Like, it fucking should have been. I think that was maybe also Dr. King being a little bit more politically conscious. Understanding that you're up against the white man in every sense of the word doing what you're doing. And it's, you know, you're only going to accomplish so much if you're going to be angry, if you're going to be militant. Because these are the people in power, the people who are the rulers now they're not going to respond well to your message if it's not one of peace. Because everything you're doing is already a threat to their power.
Yeah. So easing in.
They don't respond well to that. They get real murdery.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That.
I think they both played to their strengths for sure, but I think that given the politics of the time, I think King probably played it a lot smarter, even if he certainly would have been justified going the route. This is bullshit route.
Yeah. Like, you know what? This noise. We're out here. That's why Dr. King was Professor X.
Yes.
That's exactly why Dr. King was Professor X.
That's exactly why Malcolm
was Magneto.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's actually confirmed.
I believe. Yeah. I buy
that's
that
like
100%.
That is
I
why
can't believe I never drew the fucking parallel. Well, I know I can. I can absolutely believe I never drew the fucking parallel, because Professor X and Magneto are both fucking white European dudes.
Oh, that's something, because RJ read a thing where they might change that. They might actually make, now that Disney has the rights to the mutants, they might switch it up and make them black characters.
Or there's a total thing
I
up.
will love to see if they do that.
You know how much I would love to see Denzel Washington as Magneto? You know how much that would warm my heart? Because then he would just be Malcolm. Well,
he would also just be Denzel.
Yeah.
Denzel was such a fucking good Malcolm, because he's exactly Malcolm.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Oh, that would warm my heart. You know how many people would be upset?
That's what I was thinking. Was like, I'm looking forward to the backlash.
Wait.
I can't wait.
Oh, there were people who were mad that Black Panther did $1 billion. Can you imagine what happens the first time you see Magneto?
Who was already black to begin with. I mean,
they were so bad.
How many tears did they shed when it was fucking announced that the fucking Little Mermaid was going to be a black chick? It's amazing.
I love that fake anger. Like, then that means the Princess and the Frog Woman should be white. Stop it.
I know.
What?
Stop it.
And that's the only reason that they really even got away with the Princess and the Frog the way they did.
Yeah.
Without all of the outrage about her being black is because they set it in a completely different time period, and that story wasn't as well known.
Yeah.
Well, and it was okay because they could connect it to things that were already thought of as being explicitly black, which is to say, fucking voodoo.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh, great. I love that fake outrage so much. Like, it makes me feel good on the inside. Because it's like, stop it.
Because they don't have a single real thing to complain about.
No.
They don't have a single real concern. They don't have a single real criticism to levy. Well, they have this fucking knee-jerk reaction to anybody else being represented equally, and I've never been able to understand this. Again, this goes back to childhood. I don't understand what it is with people like that. Seeing people growing up at an age where most of their media heroes, that whatever, people in entertainment, people in news, people in whatever, it was basically just expected that would look like them, and they presumably always felt exactly nothing about that up until it started being more acceptable for other people from other groups to be recognized, and now you feel like you're losing something. How come?
Yeah.
What is it exactly that, like, what do you have to lose to begin with? Like, you're not the star. You're the working man. You have nothing to begin with.
Right.
Like, you don't have anything to lose. But also, if more people are represented in front of everyone, that doesn't bring you down. That brings other people up.
Yeah.
If you were afraid of being brought down, I could understand that. Still be full of shit, but I could understand it.
Yeah.
But to see other people brought up as being equivalent to you being brought down, how the fuck does that work in your head? Like, actually, seriously,
like, where do you get
how does
that
that
from?
work? How can it possibly be that your reaction to seeing somebody who doesn't look like you being famous makes you less?
Right.
What exactly is that?
Yeah, and what have they ever done for you individually to fill you with that kind of pride? Like, there are so many people.
That exactly.
Yeah, there are so many people who boost up certain figures, and I'm like, what has that ever helped you?
Right.
Like, what does that do for you? What was that? Remember the Occupy Democrats video we saw? This was a couple months ago. The one where they interviewed those people in Alabama, and they were asking them why they were Republican when obviously it wasn't working for them because they were the poorest state in the union, and they just kept making excuses and blamed President Obama for everything. And I'm sitting there, and there's this one dude who they're interviewing. He has like no teeth. His garage is just like stock full of just like crap. And he's over here just saying how the immigrants are going to come take my jobs. And she looked at him. She was like, you haven't worked in 15 years and you collect Medicare and unemployment. And he was like, but I deserve to do that. What?
That doesn't even reply to the question.
Yeah, that's not even...
That's not what's at issue here. That's not what's being discussed, dude.
Yeah, and that... Because people like that always want to say that other people are entitled and that they're coming for their stuff. Why is it your stuff? What have you contributed to it to just make it yours?
That's the thing. It's exactly nothing.
Yeah, I just...
Even when it's not nothing, it's still exactly nothing because you're one person in 330 million. Your contribution has been fucking nothing. That's what they don't recognize is your individual contribution has been exactly nothing. Even when it's been part of the whole, it's been comparatively, like, statistically insignificant because it's not differentiable from zero. So, and this is why I have such a hard time with people who can't understand the notion of the collective, because it literally takes everyone working for you to have any benefits whatsoever. You couldn't be collecting unemployment or disability or whatever if it wasn't for all the people who currently pay into it. You don't see where it comes from, though. You never have to see where it comes from. You never really have to reckon with the fact that any wages you ever did earn had those exact same things docked from it. But if you think for a second that your wages that contributed to the unemployment tax fund are what's keeping you afloat now,
you're
wrong.
You have, like, just clearly a fundamental misunderstanding of how math works. Because you can't possibly think that you paid enough into it over time to justify what you're taking out of it now.
Exactly.
You're taking from the work of all the other people society has now. You only stand to lose. You want to do away with taxes? I mean, I do ultimately because I want to do away with capital. You know, the farthest right people that like want to, like, they talk about they want small government. They talk about they don't want government interfering with business. They don't want tax hikes. They want tax breaks for literally everyone. And if they had their way, they'd pay nothing in taxes. You cannot have capitalism and a tax-free world. You just fucking can't. I mean, you could. That's possible. You could do it. You'd have to understand,
and it would collapse.
Like, you are the person who benefits from the social programs, the ones that you claim to hate because you think that socialism is the devil. But if all of the people around you weren't paying into the systems that are paying for you to live right now, you'd be fucked. 100% fucked because you're not capable of working right now, which means you couldn't earn your way, which means you'd fucking go homeless first, then you'd starve, then you would die.
And then you'd blame immigrants the whole time. Because it's the immigrants' fault.
Mm-hmm.
Where is your fucking reasoning? Person that is watching this right now that I'm addressing, looking you in the goddamn eye. I'm dead serious. What is your rationale?
When we get further along, I've always told myself I wanted to have a sit-down conversation with somebody who believed like that. Like, I would love to have a sit-down conversation with somebody who's racist.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see what made you become that way. What makes you look at me and think of less than you? Like, it's a fascinating concept. Like, dude, genetically, we're the same.
They don't believe that.
Which, to me, but that's science.
I wish that was as effective an answer as it should be. Well, because then we wouldn't be talking about climate change.
Yeah,
we wouldn't be talking. We wouldn't be us right now. We wouldn't even be having this conversation about race because we wouldn't have a conception of race.
Yeah, because it wouldn't exist.
Right, because it's not a real thing. I mean, it's culturally real. Like in practice, we have to deal with it as if it's real, but like physically, it's not a real thing.
If they actually acknowledge that I mentioned it, I may be getting into my first Twitter debate.
Oh.
On Twitter, I see Jake, one of the guys you told us to follow.
Jake of Hugo and Jake, viewers.
Yes, that one.
Papa Bird Jake.
Papa Bird Jake, yes. He retweeted a post from a black ex-police officer who said basically white supremacy not being a problem because more black people are killed by black people than by white people.
Precisely the same argument as more black people are criminals and therefore.
Mm-hmm. So obviously Jake was just like, that's bullshit.
Fuck off, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I went through and started reading some of the replies to the original post. And of course there were a bunch of the MAGA idiots, but then there were also people who were other black people that are like, yeah, no, we have to change the black culture to make it less violent. So I replied to the original poster, why do those things have to be joined? Why can't it be that we can change the culture to where people are not violent against each other, but also eradicate white supremacy? Nobody's answered me. So, but that was just earlier today. I'm sure someone's going to read it and fly off the handle when they see my picture as a white girl.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm waiting for that.
You don't even like your own kind.
It's of no surprise to me at all that kind of attitude exists, and it's really, really sad because it's a bunch of people who are victims of a system that has taught them to blame themselves, blaming themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fucked. It's absolutely fucked. Like that anybody could see this as a cultural issue rather than a systemic one. When the system breeds the culture, gang violence isn't a thing that exists because black people love to be in gangs and shoot each other.
Right.
Nobody loves to be in gangs and shoot each other.
Shoot each other, yeah. That wouldn't be the ideal scenario if you had another choice.
Mm-hmm.
If there was something else out there, you wouldn't choose it.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, and this is always a source of contention too, I will say that the black experience is tough because no matter what you do, you're joined together. Like, that comment shouldn't have even been able to be made.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you hear white on white crime?
Right?
Yes.
Because that's a fucking fact too.
Yeah.
That people that especially right-leaning.
Yeah. Not a single person on any side of that fucking issue would blame it on white culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which to me is, so it's a really, but on the flip side, I get that too. You heard my mom say I'm not black enough.
Uh-huh.
I don't even know what that means. Like, to me, and I've dealt with this my whole life. I don't know. See, and it's so weird because you guys don't. Can you imagine if somebody came up to you and said, you're not white enough?
Yeah. You know, I don't think it's a thing so much now, but when we were kids and teenagers, it absolutely was. Like, white kids who, like, get too into supposedly black culture.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Face fucking backlash from white supremacists about it. I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah, no, I've seen that.
But at the same time, that's not them saying you're not white enough. That's them saying you're too black or you're acting too this or that. They're not saying specifically that you're not adhering to the stereotype of whiteness enough for their liking.
I
What?
think, what you're saying sounds like a distinction without a difference, but I get what you're saying. There definitely is some nuance to it because it's not about them. Well, because the kind of white people we're talking about when we talk about those kinds of white people are the kind of people who think that they don't have a race.
Yeah.
Whiteness is the absence of race, and if you
Yeah.
display the characteristics that you associate with another person who has a race, then you're behaving in an impure way.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is weird.
Which feels gross to say out loud.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like
it.
it.
I don't like it. Hell yeah. What bothers me about it, actually, I heard a YouTuber we watch often, Kev, say the same thing. It's when you're black, especially if you're black and you live outside of what the stereotypical norm is, you feel like you hold your whole race on your back. Like there are times where I'll go into when we have somebody at work do too much, I get looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why are you looking at me? What? We're not related. Like, I don't know her. Like, that has nothing to do with me. But that is always a thing. Like, the stereotypes hold so strong that it becomes difficult to kind of function as an individual when you're looped in with such a collective. And to me, I never understood that because there is no one set experience to the black experience. You can be that and you can be who you are within the collective. So I never understood why I had to be lumped in with everyone. That's why I think it would be hard for me to live in the 60s because it wouldn't stop me from loving you, you know?
But society might try harder too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably die.
Depending on where you were in the country. But
yeah,
there's every possibility that you both would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably die.
Well, he would definitely.
Yeah.
They would try to get me to
repent your ways.
No, they would try to get me to be a witness for the prosecution.
Oh yeah, against me. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
probably.
That's very true. Yeah, that's absolutely
Damn.
true. Yeah, right.
Fucking good point.
Yeah, they would try and turn you.
They would try to tell me
they wouldn't necessarily try to turn you. It was so much as threaten you into doing it.
Yeah, exactly. They would try to threaten me into basically trying to say that you did something untoward to me.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine
or
me
I'm
driving
going to jail
around?
too.
Can you imagine me driving around with the kids in the 60s?
Mm-hmm. What you doing with them kids there?
Well, I mean, the only way it would probably work is because they probably thought I'd be like their chauffeur or their maid. Then it may work. And that'd be it. There are people getting pulled over now.
But as soon as they put eyes on them.
Yeah. That's the stuff that gives me the small hope in humans that I have. It's because though we have a long way to go, there is so much more progress that you see. And you start seeing it better. And like Child One's generation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm his dad now. Like there's nobody who looks at me any kind of funny when I go pick him up. It's nothing weird. There's no awkward glances. There's no nothing. I mean, I'm sure there are people who think it, but they're not dumb enough to ever come out and say it to me in person.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the first step in a thing not being okay to think. Is it not being okay to say?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you can't say it out loud, you are participating in the breeding ground of it not being okay to think anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me despise our president so much.
Mm.
It's because he's cultivating that small little sack of people. And the funny thing is, if you look at his numbers, they're okay. They're not impressive.
They're not even good.
Yeah.
They're not even kind of good.
But you see media's like quoting the numbers that he's doing, and it's like, stop. You're exaggerating a small collective and making them out to be bigger than what they are. Because the collective told you what it wanted when Hillary won the popular vote. They didn't even like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the collective was that strong about it, it's not as blatant as you would think.
I wonder where you're getting your numbers, because like I haven't ever heard of his. As far as I know, I mean, when you take in the general population, not among like specifically his base, not even among Republicans,
and that's
everyone all together, his approval rating has never ever risen above 50%.
But you hear, and again, depending on what you watch, the quoting his base. And then they use those polls. And they're like, this is out of 150,000 people. There are 330 million in the country.
Right.
Come on, man. We're talking about percentage points. Like, like what are we really talking about? Is that even something where I've seen? And I mean, I know this is.
You know what? This is a great segue point, actually. Do we see this impeachment inquiry actually going anywhere? I know that pretty much sums up my feelings on it too.
Like, no.
It's I want it to. I've always wanted it to. I guess the thing on this one is that, like, what it's got going for it is so dramatically much more concrete than any past allegation. Like, I mean, there's not even no denying this one. It's like, he was so sure that everything that he fucking did was completely okay to do, that, like, he released the records of it himself to the public.
Yeah, he's like, you're telling me I can't shake down another country in order to get information out of somebody. You guys tell me that's a bad thing?
Right. Everything I did was perfectly fine. Here, I'll prove it. Here are the records of it. And everybody's like, like, it's not even a question anymore. Like, it's a definite for sure. And you're like,
right?
He's like, wait, so you guys are telling me a shakedown's a bad thing? Like, I can't do that? I don't understand that. Doesn't make any sense. What do you mean I can't do a shakedown?
I honestly can't tell at this point if he is actually convinced he did nothing wrong. Though, as fucking stupid as he is, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But as not stupid as he clearly also is, somehow.
No, that makes sense.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least little bit if he knew that what he did was absolutely not okay and would get any other president in history impeached, and kind of fucking almost did once. That he has been able to get away with so much shit up to this point anyway, that he was like, it's not going to happen this time if it didn't happen all those other fucking times.
Yeah.
I can't tell. Is it hubris or is it stupidity?
It's hubris. This is the man who sat on a rally stage and said, if I shot somebody in the middle of Central Park right now, I'd still get elected. He knows. His claim to fame and why he thinks he'll be successful, and honestly why I wouldn't be surprised if he won another election, is because the other side doesn't have anything to be able to compete with.
Outro. So I don't honestly know where I'm going to cut this, viewers. I'm going to do the standard, although we've only done it once before, but we're going to call it standard from now on because it's probably always true. Disclaimer of, gosh, I probably just cut a whole lot of episode that you could have watched, but it really didn't pertain. So it doesn't matter as far as, it never existed, I say. But
you may get it on the Patreon one day.
You may get it on the Patreon one day. I might. Yeah, we could start doing some outtakes. We could give you some one-offs.
Yeah.
The blooper reels are, gosh, that's going to be a lot of video.
Snack break.
Teaser. But thank you so much for watching. We love you very, very much. And hey, that Patreon that I threatened that one time, although by the time that video's up, it'll already be existing. It'll be a normal thing to you. But as of now, that video is not up.
I went about this the wrong way.
We have a Patreon.
Yep.
It's at patreon.com/we have some thoughts. I'll obviously have it linked in the description. You can totally click on that if you want to be a patron and give us money to live on. That would be amazing, because if we could have more of
help us out
money, then we wouldn't have to work regular jobs as much, and then we could do more of this.
If you can't, if you guys are like listening to us on your drive to work or whatever, and you can't leave YouTube up to watch us, we're also on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and Radio Public.
We're all over the place.
Yes.
We are currently several places, and we're working on getting even more places.
Yes. So if for whatever reason YouTube doesn't work right for your circumstance to listen to us, please, please, please give us a shout out, or not a shout out, give us a try on any of those other lovely platforms.
Give us a listen. Give us a like.
Give us a share.
If the particular...
Yes, subscribe, share, like, spread it all over the place. Get our names out there so that we can continue to have these wonderful conversations with you guys.
So, anyway, thank you very much for watching. We love you very much, as always.
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 Good night, everyone.